The Amber Rescue. The air in Sector 7 of Xylos was a hot, gritty soup of pulverized concrete and weapon residue. It tasted like metal and defeat. Jackson Rios, pressed into the shadow of a skeletal, collapsed transit station, checked the charge of his pulse rifle. The silence between the distant artillery echoes was almost worse than the noise. It meant the ash scavengers were close and hunting smart. His assignment was simple: extract one Kira Solari, a scientist deemed vital by the planetary resistance. The pay was good enough to almost be worth the certain death. A flash of deep blue in the gloom signaled Kira's arrival. She moved with a reserved grace that felt impossibly out of place in the devastation. Her eyes, a striking, luminous amber, scanned their surroundings with an intelligent intensity that immediately set her apart from the panicked civilians Jackson usually dealt with. "Rios," she murmured, her voice a low, steady thrum against the metallic background noise. "They know I'm here." The rendezvous was compromised. Before Jackson could curse the intelligence failure, the air fractured with laser fire. A squad of scavengers, clad in rusting, heavily armored plating, burst from the adjacent ruin. Jackson shoved Kira into the cover of a massive, overturned transport hull. He returned fire, his rifle spitting a torrent of defensive energy, but they were outnumbered, and the raiders' weapons were heavier. One of the brutes leveled a plasma cannon. Jackson knew that blast would vaporize the hull. With a desperate lunge driven by instinct, not professionalism, he threw his body over Kira, bracing for impact. The plasma round didn't vaporize them, but it slammed into his reinforced shoulder guard with the force of a high-speed collision, sparking violently and sending white-hot shrapnel tearing through his armor. The pain was blinding, crushing the breath from his lungs. His vision swam, and his rifle clattered away. He slumped against the hull, fighting the blackness. It wasn't enough, he thought, his last conscious thought a bitter regret for failure. Then, a sensation of unexpected warmth. Kira didn't panic. She didn't run. Her composure was absolute. Instead, she turned, completely ignoring the receding sounds of the scavengers reorganizing for a second pass. She kneeled by him, her luminous amber eyes focused entirely on his pain-contorted face. Her fingers, surprisingly delicate yet firm, brushed against the jagged, molten metal of his armor, tracing the damage. "Your fire is a beautiful shield, Rios," she whispered, her gaze holding his, bypassing the grit and the grime and going straight to his core. The compliment, so strangely poetic and sincere, stunned him into lucidity. "Now, let me guide us," she helped him up, her small body somehow providing immense strength. In that moment, in the acrid, burning shadow of war, Jackson felt a deep, undeniable pull, a connection that felt far more dangerous than any plasma blast. It wasn't gratitude he saw in her eyes, it was recognition, and a glimmer of shared destiny. The invitation was delivered via an encrypted, untraceable channel, a single Xylan character meaning threshold. Kian knew accepting meant stepping over a line he could not uncross, moving from political adversary to secret confidant, with Ilara. He bypassed the main diplomatic channels, navigating the quiet service corridors of Etheria Station until he reached the restricted wing where the Xylan delegation was housed. Ilara's quarters were vast and austere, lined with holographic representations of Xylan celestial bodies and shelves holding complex, geometric artifacts. The air was cool and faintly scented with that ozone spice perfume. She met him at the inner door, her expression serious. "You are a fool for coming," she said, her voice devoid of the flirtation that usually underscored their exchanges. "If Tiran, my security chief, discovers you here, the talks will end and you will be labeled a spy. Sit." She gestured toward a low, cushioned lounge. Ilara activated a concealed terminal, projecting a dense array of Xylan script onto the wall. "The demands we issued publicly are not for resources or territory. They are a political shield. There is a powerful faction, the Elder Council, who are trying to destabilize the Federation. They need a clear, unyielding enemy to justify a military build-up and secure their power. If we accept anything less than these impossible terms publicly, they will use it to tear my government apart." Kian absorbed the staggering political complexity. "So, we have to appear to negotiate your demands down, but in reality, you need us to meet a specific non-negotiable term in secret." "Precisely," Ilara confirmed, her eyes meeting his, demanding understanding. She moved closer, indicating a small, highlighted section of the complex script. This is the true core. It is a seemingly innocuous clause about the Silent Veil Protocol. It dictates that a specific monument on Xylos must be recognized as forever untouched by Earth-aligned entities. To the Council, this is symbolic proof of our absolute authority. To us, it is merely a non-militarized cultural site. Kian looked from the text to her face, realizing the immense risk she was taking. She wasn't a ruthless adversary. She was a protective politician shielding her people. A wave of admiration, potent and confusing, washed over him. "Ilara," he murmured, reaching out and gently taking her hand, the intimacy of the action shocking them both. Her skin was smooth, cool to the touch. "You are jeopardizing everything to save both our worlds." She didn't pull away. Instead, she turned her palm upward, her fingers intertwining with his, sealing the secret pact. "I am simply ensuring that the game is played on my terms, Kian." Her facade finally cracked, replaced by a vulnerability that was breathtaking. "And right now, my terms require absolute trust in you." The tension that had simmered for days finally broke. He didn't move to speak or analyze the protocol further. Instead, he gently tugged her closer, closing the final inch between them. Their lips met, a soft, careful brush that quickly deepened into a desperate, honest expression of the high-stakes trust they had just forged. In that kiss, the line between politics and passion vanished, leaving only the urgent reality of two people fighting for peace and finding solace in the midst of betrayal. The Counter-Protocol Gambit, 400 words. Kian spent the night crafting the luminous conservation annex. He couldn't explicitly meet the Xylan demand to declare the Silent Veil Monument forever untouched by Earth-aligned entities, as that would concede political sovereignty. Instead, he cleverly reframed it. His annex designated the site as a zone of collaborative preservation, an area protected under a mutually agreed-upon cultural accord, monitored by a joint Earth-Xylan committee. It gave Ilara the symbolic victory she needed for her council, disguised in a framework of shared oversight palatable to Earth. Ambassador Joran was unimpressed. "You've conceded the principle. This is political suicide," Joran hissed an hour before the final assembly. Kian maintained a stoic front, offering only a cryptic assurance, "Trust the nuance, Ambassador." Sometimes a quiet door is better than an open war. He was gambling his entire career, relying only on Ilara's secret trust. The final signing ceremony was held in the station's enormous grand hall, a space usually reserved for orbital commerce. The tension was suffocating. As Kian approached the dais to present the luminous conservation annex, the key to the entire agreement, he felt a cold premonition. It materialized immediately. Commander Tyran, Ilara's chief of security and a known loyalist of the rival Elder Council, moved with alarming speed. Tyran intercepted Kian barely a step from the dais, his voice booming across the silent hall. "Stop. This diplomat possesses unauthorized documents. A violation of the Neutral Zone Protocol. He is a spy for Earth, attempting to introduce unauthorized alterations." Tyran lunged for the annex in Kian's hand. Kian froze, ready to fight, but Ilara was faster. She had anticipated this countermove. Before Tyran's hand could make contact, Ilara swept forward in a calculated fury. She didn't defend Kian, she attacked him. "How dare you, Earth diplomat," she roared, her voice echoing with manufactured outrage. She snatched the document from Kian's grasp, pulling it out of the perimeter of Tyran's reach. To tamper with the Xylan protocol at the last moment is a display of breathtaking disrespect. She held the annex high, her eyes locking with Kian's for a fraction of a second, a fleeting, intense exchange that communicated everything. "I have it, the gambit is on." Kian played his part perfectly, letting his face drain of color, stammering a feigned apology. Ilara turned her back on him, presenting the annex to the head Xylan signatory, allowing the ceremonial reading to proceed while Tyran, momentarily stymied by Ilara's own perceived hostility toward Kian, could only protest the diplomat's bad faith, not the document's content. They had sacrificed Kian's reputation to save the peace. The Luminous Conservation Annex was ratified. The peace treaty was signed. Commander Tyran's protest was officially dismissed as a final, desperate act of diplomatic sabotage, ironically lending more legitimacy to the annex than Kian could have hoped for. Ambassador Joran, though still deeply suspicious, was forced to hail Kian as a hero for his courage under pressure. Hours later, the official celebrations were in full swing, but Kian was nowhere near them. He waited in the bowels of the station, in a decommissioned cargo bay, a vast, concrete cavern smelling of cold metal and distant vacuum. He paced until he heard the faint hiss of the security door opening and closing. Ilara stood before him, the shimmering silk of her diplomatic attire replaced by a dark, soft flight suit. Her face was drawn, showing the exhaustion of maintaining an iron composure through a political firefight. He closed the distance in 3 long strides, and this time, there was no pretense, no political game. He simply pulled her into a tight, profound embrace. The relief that flooded their shared space was immense, a quiet explosion of triumph and shared risk. "You were magnificent, Ilara," Kian murmured into her hair, his heart finally slowing from the frenetic pace of the last few days. "The way you took the annex, it was a performance worthy of the Elder Council themselves." She leaned back, her silver eyes dark with emotion. "I was not acting when I wanted to kill Tyran for laying a hand on you. It was too close, Kian. Far too close." She cupped his face, her thumb gently tracing the line of his jaw. "You are a dangerous man, Alvarez. You risked your world's trust for mine." "It was a better risk than war," he replied, leaning into her touch. The gravity of the moment, the knowledge that they had secured peace at the cost of their own immediate future, settled heavily between them. They spent a long moment in silence, the quiet intimacy of the cargo bay enveloping them. They both knew this was their final, true moment. Ilara was the architect of Xylan peace and had to return home to defend her position. Kian was an Earth hero, bound by his duties. She took his hand and kissed his palm, a lingering, tender contact. "My journey begins tomorrow. The Council is expecting a thorough report on my hostile dealings with you." Her voice was husky. Kian pulled her back, their kiss deep and passionate, a desperate promise made without words. It was a final, undeniable assertion of their connection, a fire lit beneath the cold stars. When they finally parted, Ilara reached into a pouch on her suit and pulled out a small, intricately carved metallic orb, a communication device, ancient Xylan design. "The cosmos is wide, Kian Alvarez," she whispered, pressing the orb into his hand. "But sometimes, the quietest connections are the strongest. Find me when the echoes of this agreement fade." With a final, lingering look, Ilara turned and walked toward the exit, leaving Kian alone in the dark cargo bay, holding the key to their clandestine future. The peace was secured, the war averted, and the most dangerous game had just begun. A new horizon. They emerged from the shaft into the derelict shell of an abandoned storage hangar on the outskirts of Sector 7. Kira used the now recalibrated phase array modulator to send a pulsed signal, a prearranged emergency pickup beacon for the resistance. They had maybe 15 minutes before the signal was triangulated. They took cover behind a stack of rusted cargo containers, Kira tending to a small scorch mark on Jackson's armor. The 5-minute mark brought trouble. 3 well-armed ash scavengers, led by a heavily armored captain, located them. The final confrontation was unavoidable. Jackson positioned himself, his pulse rifle steadied, his focus absolute. He was a predator protecting his den. "Stay behind me, Kira," he ordered, his voice low and firm. "No," she countered, her amber eyes blazing with newfound resolve. "I won't. I know the Resistance's tactical grid. I guide, you strike." They fought side by side, their roles perfectly inverted from a typical mercenary asset relationship. Jackson's precision fire was deadly, but it was Kira's rapid, intuitive directions. "Left flank, the ceiling beam is weak, use the dust cloud," that gave them the tactical edge. The fight was a brutal, desperate dance of evasion and impact, ending only when Jackson, with a final, primal roar, used his remaining strength to disarm the captain, sending the massive figure crashing into a support pillar. Just as the last scavenger fell, a low, powerful engine hum filled the air. A sleek, gunmetal grey resistance freighter dropped silently into the hangar. The ramp lowered, and a figure in tactical gear beckoned them aboard. A representative approached Jackson, offering him a data chit loaded with enough credits to guarantee early retirement on any neutral colony. Jackson took the chit, looking down at the immense sum. He glanced from the credits to the freighter's open ramp, and then, finally, to Kira. She didn't plead or command. She simply walked up to him, her hand gently taking his, the weight of the modulator forgotten. "Come with me, Jackson," she said, her voice soft but filled with the promise of a shared purpose. "The fight is far from over, but we face it together. My future needs your shield." Jackson looked at the anonymous, cold promise of wealth in his hand. He looked at the warmth, the courage, and the undeniable love radiating from the extraordinary woman beside him. With a shrug that felt lighter than air, he let the data chip clatter to the dusty hangar floor, watching the credits scatter uselessly. He pulled Kira into a deep, heartfelt kiss, a promise of fidelity sealed in the midst of war. They ascended the ramp, embracing on the threshold of the ship, leaving the scorched planet behind. They flew not as a mercenary and his asset, but as partners stepping into a new, shared future among the stars.